All right.
Hey, you guys, thanks for listening in to this episode of Tips with T. On today, I have Miss Sandra with us. Hey, Miss Sandra, how you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Okay. So I am Sandra Morno, born and raised in Miami, Florida. I consider myself a numbers geek, I guess you could say. I've been in the tax industry since, oh my God, 2009. It's been a minute. And I actually kind of stumbled into the industry. I was working on getting my MBA, and um, my friend who turned up being my mentor had an accounting firm. He was just like, hey, I need some help. And I was just like, well, I need some work while I'm going to school. And here we are over a decade later. And so, now what I do, I really just work with small business owners, mainly women of color. It's been a couple of years in the making of doing that because we need the most help with service-based businesses, really kind of working with them all year long, right? Because everyone thinks it's just doing your taxes, and there's so much more to it. It's
Right.
about tax planning, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. And so that's my whole objective: to work with people all year long, educating them, showing them how to save money, showing them how to be like Netflix and Amazon, because that seems to be on the top of everybody's tongue, right? How come they ain't pay no taxes? Well,
Mhm.
they planned, they strategized,
Yes.
and of course they have a team of attorneys as well.
Yeah, it's ways around things to help you save within your business that a lot of people don't know about. But before we get into all that, so let's talk about tax planning, or just tell us what is tax planning. I've been trying to preach to the choir about this, so maybe maybe having a different voice on the show can kind of help.
uh,
But what
yeah.
is tax planning?
I mean, it's basically in the name, right? Like we're planning, like we were creating a plan for our taxes so that we don't have to owe so much in taxes. It's a way to reduce your liability. So it's like all year long, let's look at these deductions. Let's look at some benefits. Let's look at some credits. Let's look at, different ways of bringing down what you owe to the IRS. And there's so many ways to do that, like you said, right? It's not just about January to April. It's too late then. And that's when people come to me and I'm like, oh, I can't do nothing. I can tell you to open up an IRA, and that's not going to really be much. It's all about being proactive all throughout the year and working with someone all year long. If
Mhm.
someone's not offering tax planning or any type of advisory or guidance, you need someone who does, especially as a business owner, because you want to make sure that you keep all your money. Stop paying more than your fair share, is what I like to say.
Yeah, I mean, I try to tell some of my tax clients that too. They were like, "Well, how can I say? What can I do?" I'm like, "Well, you should have asked me that last year. The end of last year, how can you prepare for this upcoming year on what deductions?" And it's so crazy because I send them out like a checklist of things that they can do throughout the year.
Oh.
Still don't get it.
Well, what I've learned is that people don't like free. Let me not say that. I feel like even when we give them advice and we don't charge them for it, they're not gonna do it. But
Yeah.
as soon as you kind of like, all right, well, I'm gonna charge you for this, now they're gonna take some type of action, right? Because I was like you, hey, I would tell people this is what you need to do. Consider doing this, and then the following year they come back to me and it's the same thing, and I'm like, what? Well, why did I waste my breath or my email? Like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. Um, so what are some of the benefits that you have seen when it comes to tax planning that can kind of help us throughout the year?
I mean, the benefits is when you file your taxes, it's not like, wait, what? I owe $25,000? Like, if you're planning throughout the year, first off, we're going to get that $25,000 down, right? And
Mhm.
then when we do file, let's just say it's down to 10, like, you're prepared for that. We know what's going to happen. So there's like no unnecessary stresses. And then you're learning, like, if you're working with someone, you're learning the code, right? Oh, I can hire my children. Oh, I can do this and I
Mhm.
can do that. It's all about being proactive. And that's why I love it, right? The tax code is out there for everybody to benefit. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of people just, I don't know if they just don't understand. And that's why they don't do it. But for me, it allows you to look at the big picture, right? No more stresses about like, oh my gosh, how much am I gonna owe the IRS?
Mhm.
And it educates you on the tax code. Like you feel some type of empowerment now, like, okay, y'all not gonna get me no more.
Yeah, and I think it's really a lot of people that are like the people of color that really
Yeah,
don't know the type of tax benefits that they can get throughout the year
right.
to help us, and so we tend to end up on the IRS more money compared to other people that are aware, that are well aware, and they have a team,
Hmm.
attorneys and all this
Right.
stuff. They end up paying nothing back. I mean,
Yeah. Very little. Look at Netflix and Amazon. Like those are my go-to examples. Yes, they're a billion-dollar company,
mhm,
but I mean, if you look at their return, like it ain't. They don't really owe much because what people don't get is not about how much you make, but it's how you make it.
right.
So you could make $1 billion, but guess what? At the end of the day, we're gonna show that we ain't make nothing. But we've taken advantage of the tax code here and there. And yeah, it is us. We'd be like, nah, I'm good. And then we complain about it and go back to our other CPA instead of working with someone that looks like them to
Yeah.
help them.
Yeah, I mean, and then another example too is Donald Trump. They was just so amazed. Oh, he only had to pay back so much. I'm like, look, that man done strategized. He done had him a whole team. Like, if he got hit by the IRS, that means it was legit.
Well, you know what? Not only that, Donald Trump is a horrible example because he was a horrible businessman. So
Yeah,
you lost money.
yeah,
So yeah, you're not gonna owe nothing. You ain't made no money.
yeah.
Like I could lose money and not owe anything. Like, if you're talking about like Bill Gates or, Warren Buffett, then,
Mhm.
use them as an example. Please don't use Donald Trump.
But hey, I mean, I was just using that as an example because he just got out of paying money to back to
Yeah.
some way to get out of paying to IRS. So maybe that was a bad example, but still
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of paying
Right.
because he knew the tax code. So
Right.
he was a
Yeah.
horrible. We kind of consider him to be a horrible business owner, but
Yeah. Thank God for his team. That's all I got to say.
thank God for his team. So I guess what are some tax planning tips that can help small business owners who are trying to at least prepare themselves for the next tax season? Because this tax season, is done.
Right.
So how can what are some tips that can help them prepare for the next year?
What I would say first off, find somebody who offers tax planning. This is the perfect time, right? Because we're at the mid-year mark. So find somebody who can help you look at your finances and kind of go from there.
Mhm,
The second one, like one of my favorite like strategies is hiring your children.
mhm,
Like if your child is at least 7 or 8, you can hire them, right? And pay them a legitimate amount of money. Now I know some people be getting crazy with it. They can only be topped off at about $12,400.
mhm,
And it has to be a real job, people.
mhm,
Don't just be having them do anything because you could get audited for that. So
mhm,
you want to create like, a bank account for them. You want them to have a check. You want them to clock in or clock out. You want all of those things, right? Because that's $12,000 right there. You can kind of write off if they taking the trash out or if they're taking pictures of you for your YouTube page or whatever the case may be. And then you can open up an IRA for them. So that's like about $17,000 you can legitimately write off,
mhm,
right? I like the mileage deduction. A lot of people don't know that there's two ways to write off your mileage. There's the standard and then there's the actual. And a
mhm.
lot of times the actual will get you so much more of a deduction if you keep track of all your expenses,
Yes.
right? Having your books up to date. That's the most important thing because if you don't have no numbers, we can't help you. you gotta you gotta kind of start from somewhere, even if it's an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Man, I could go on and on. There's a lot out there, that people just don't realize. There's a 179 deduction, right? Let's just say your business did really well
Mhm.
and you bought like I don't want to use a car because everyone's talking about right now BMWs and all that other nonsense, and that's not the case. But let's just say you made a hefty purchase, right? And you want to just write off that whole thing. You
Mhm.
could do that with a 179 deduction. So there's a lot of things out there just plain in plain sight that people can use, but you got to find someone who's going to help you. That's the first step. Finding someone who's going to be able to help you all year long.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I did see with my tax clients this year is they didn't utilize like their mileage or their like car expenses. And I'm like, if you have
Yeah,
a car that you're just using for business, all that can go in your tax return.
exactly.
And that's what helps people get the biggest tax breaks when they actually use the actual mileage as well as the expenses when it comes relating to that business vehicle. And it's just like, well, I didn't know I could do that. I'm like, well, that's why you need to ask
Right.
these type of
Yep.
questions
Yeah.
at the time so you know how to be prepared throughout the year. So
Yep.
that's
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, working with somebody like you're gonna be on their back, right? Like you're looking at their numbers and you're like, well, like you said, where's your mileage? Where's your car expenses? Where's this? Where's that? and they didn't know to do that. So that's why it's so important to work with someone all year long. I'm such an advocate of that. Like when people come to me, I'm like, well, who was doing your taxes? What was it like?
Mhm.
Because that's not what I offer. If you just want tax prep, I can.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I try to help my small business owners, but some of them are hard headed. Some of them do just tend to listen though, but like a lot of them are hard headed. I'm like, okay. And then they was like, well, what happened between this year and last year? And I when I go through the breakdown, I'm like, when I
Right.
told you could do this, that, third, you didn't come
Right.
with that. So this is what it is. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
then I think then that's when they actually click and they get it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to talk to you throughout the whole year. Yeah, you do. But then when you do that, that is a separate service. So
That
that's a
well,
separate fee.
okay. Okay. Look, say that right there. Because I'll be getting people like, oh, Sandra, I need like an hour of your time to pick your brain. I'm like, oh no, that's not that's not what tax prep is. This is a whole nother service. We're not picking Sandra's brain for an hour. Just no.
We're clarifying, you guys. Tax planning and tax preparation is totally separate. They don't come together.
Exactly. The tax planning is all year long. You can get a tax planning package that has tax prep,
Yep.
but yeah, not just yeah. We're not answering questions, just to answer them no more.
Yeah, knowledge is power, and we have to pay for the knowledge, so y'all gonna have to pay for it too. So yeah, that's how we've been rocking it right now. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I totally agree with you. Yep, yep, yep.
So thank you, Miss Sandra, so much for coming on the show. So tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you if they want to render your services, and I will share the social media handles.
Okay. The easiest way is LinkedIn. That's where I'm really at most of the time. You can just send me a message or connect with me, and we can go from there. We actually have an event coming up in August this year. Hopefully, you can attend. We're gonna be talking about financials and how important it is, especially as we go into that fourth quarter, getting people ready. So yeah, you can check me out on my website. I give like free 15-minute calls, and I keep it at 15 minutes. Or Facebook or LinkedIn. Those are the ways to really get in touch with me.
Awesome. And if you guys want to get in contact with me, feel free. By doing so, my number is 910-317-0396. You can shoot me an email at contact@mjfinancial.biz. You can schedule a consultation on the website at www.mjfinancial.biz, and you can find this episode on Anchor, you guys, and you can also find a playback for this video on the YouTube channel for M&J Financial Management. So thank you once again, Miss Sandra, for being a guest on the show. I highly appreciate you.
Thank you. This was fun. I'm glad. I love meeting people that understand and get it. And we just need to, we got to keep preaching to these folks until they get it.
And all right, you guys, we'll see you on the next episode of Tips with T.